Hey up viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist. Welcome back to Sir Being Hunted, episode 502 now. So, it's another podcast style episode, ladies and gentlemen, as actually promised. Well, what I said at the end of the last episode is, I'm actually recording this straight after the last one, because I've got a topic of conversation in mind that I really want to talk about, and I think a podcast style episode is the ticket for that. And on top of that, I want to kind of get it done before I end up sort of forgetting about it, as it's fresh in my memory and all that. So, in the last episode, of course, I was talking about mine and Phil's trip over to Munich, which was fantastic, it was really good. And is well worth a visit and all that if you're ever interested in sort of touring German cities and that kind of thing. Because the thing is, Munich has great transport links, so, that's great. You've got so many U-Bahn, S-Bahn links, things like that. It's fantastic. So, since getting back from Munich, I've come back down to Swindon, just relaxing now in my sort of final few days of my sort of summer leave before work starts up again. Spending some time just, catching up on videos on YouTube and things like that. And, recently I've been watching a couple of interesting channels. Channels that, which you may have heard of. Well, one of which you probably will have heard of. I don't know why I'm acting like it's a channel you won't have heard of. I've recently been watching a lot of Scary Game Squad, Jesse Cox and his pals playing scary games, so that's been fun to watch that. Watching them play various games, like, for example, Layers of Fear, the old PT demo, things like that. That's always really enjoyable. I don't know why, but Scary Game Squad, the PT videos, that's a set of videos that I do sometimes find myself going back to and rewatching again and again, more than once, just because they're quite enjoyable. Indeed, a lot of Scary Game videos are ones that Scary Game Squad videos rather, are ones that I can always just come back and rewatch every so often, because I find them very enjoyable. But the other channel that I've actually been watching recently, this is a channel which some of you may have heard of, some of you may not have. It's a channel called Galm, Galm. It's a gaming channel. It's a dude who basically just does a lot of Let's Plays. And he's got quite a nice presenting style. He's a nice sociable sort of fella, at least from what I've seen of him so far. And he's been playing I was looking at his playlists, all the playthroughs he's done. He's done a lot of games, and quite a variety of games as well, including some really good ones. So I'm probably going to be watching quite a few of his videos over the coming months or whatever. So, there's a little channel recommendation there for anyone who might be interested. But thing is, in particular, recently, I've been watching Garm Let's Playing the Sly Cooper series of games. Now, I think a lot of you will probably remember what Sly Cooper is. Sly Cooper is basically a platformer series of games from the sort of 2000s. And I think they were only ever available on the PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm about sort of 6 episodes in to his playthrough of the Sly Cooper game so far, as of when I record this, that is, 29th of August. And it's interesting because obviously he's on the first Sly Cooper game at the moment, and I'm sort of thinking to myself, this game is it's very of its time, and it definitely has that look of like an old sort of early 2000s PlayStation game. But I'm also looking at it and I'm thinking that actually looks like a game that I probably would have loved to play when I was younger, when I was a teenager. I probably would have loved to play it if only I'd had a PlayStation when I was a kid. Because the thing about me is, when I was a kid, I didn't have any other video game consoles. I just had a computer, and it wasn't even a proper gaming computer. It was just a budget desktop PC. So, the thing is, when I was young, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, no doubt there were a lot of games that I missed out on in my youth, and which I've only really come to now as an adult and been able to play. And so the thing is, like Sly Cooper, that's a series of games which I, like I say, probably would have really enjoyed when I was young. Because the thing about me is I, love my platformer games, especially 3D platformers, like old school Rayman, Rayman 2, Rayman 3, 2D Captain Claw, etc, etc. So I would have probably played the shit out of old school Sly Cooper games back in the day if I'd had them, just saying. Probably would have found them very, very enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to watching more of that Sly Cooper series that Garm is doing, or has done rather, and just seeing, all these different Sly Cooper games that were released and, how they stack, how they compare, one against the other and all that. And so far, I'm thinking to myself, it just looks, the first one at least looks really enjoyable. Because the thing is, it's sort of marketed as like a stealth platformer type of games, though, to be honest, when it says stealth, it seems like a pretty forgiving game from what I've seen of it so far. But, as I've been watching this Sly Cooper series so far, what it kind of got me thinking about is the sheer number of old console games which I really feel like should have been ported to PC, just to, share them to a wider audience and all that. Because the thing is, like, I was actually looking online to see, was Sly Cooper ever, I don't know, was there ever a PC version of it released? And as far as I can tell, the answer to that is no, there wasn't. It was basically a PlayStation only title, which is a real shame, because, like I say, it just looks like one of those games that younger me, well, I say younger me, in fact, probably adult me, would really enjoy for how cartoonishly silly it actually is, but just how fun it is as well, with all the 3D platforming mechanics. It looks like the sort of game that would be right up my kind of street. But of course it's not available on PC and all that. So that's the topic of this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Games that really ought to be ported to computer in one form or another. I was also kind of curious, not only would Sly Cooper have been available on PC, but would there also have been like a version of it released on GOG or Steam or something? Answer to that, no, not as far as I can tell anyway. Which is a real shame, because like I say, I would love to play those games, but I don't have a PlayStation, and they're old games as well. But like I say, on that kind of subject of games that I really wish had been ported over to PC, another series that I think would have been very interesting to see ported over to PC were the TimeSplitters series of games, because I watched a playthrough of the third TimeSplitters game, the TimeSplitters Future Perfect, not too long ago, and the thing about TimeSplitters is it's basically an FPS, but it's quite cartoony, and it has like a time travel sort of plot about Sergeant Cortez going back through time to try and stop the Timesplitter alien monsters or wherever they are. And that's a series of games which, again, I really, really wish had been ported over to PC, because as far as I'm aware, none of the TimeSplitters games ever were. So I can't remember what console TimeSplitters actually was supposed to be on. I think it was another PlayStation one, wasn't it? As far as I can tell, anyway. But yeah, TimeSplitters is another franchise that probably would have been right up my alley if it had ever been released on PC back when I was just a wee little lad, when I was a teenager or whatever. But yeah, you can find obviously playthroughs of these games on YouTube. There's going to be tons of people who've done playthroughs of them, but there you go. So yeah, just that sort of subject of games that should have been ported, but it's a travesty that they never really were, unfortunately. But that's an interesting topic of conversation actually for you viewers as well. Are there any like console games that you remember from your youth or whatever which really ought to have been ported over to PC? Come to think of it, actually I can think of others as well, in that sort of platforming genre, like the Jak and Daxter games. Do you remember those ones? I can remember Phil actually used to have those games, and he played them when he was a teenager on his PlayStation. Again, that's a franchise which I don't think was ever ported to any other console, PC included. I think it was only ever on PlayStation as far as I remember. But the Jak and Daxter games, again, platformers, I probably would have loved to play the shit out of those if they'd been on PC. And what about like the Ratchet and Clank games? I think they were only ever console games, weren't they? They were never released on PC. It's just like, how many fucking awesome franchises were only ever released on console and were never ported to PC? I mean, I know obviously there's always a bit of a kind of a bit of a challenge with porting console games to PC, because obviously their control schemes are designed for playing with console, not with mouse and keyboard, so sometimes the control scheme doesn't translate very well. But even so, I still would have loved to have a crack at them. But yeah, that's unfortunate, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Because again, platforming franchises like Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, God, I would have loved to play the shit out of them. But instead, of course, I suppose I just have to content myself with watching YouTube playthroughs. It's a real shame. Either that, or I maybe should consider investing in a console, but I don't know. I'm sort of kind of wary about throwing down, a couple of £100 if I'm just going to be buying a console with the aim of getting certain games, whereas I could just watch them on YouTube for free and all that. But Who knows, ladies and gentlemen? Who knows? Out of interest though, is there anyone actually out there watching this who played any of the games that I've mentioned? Sly Cooper, TimeSplitters, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter. Anyone out there who played any of those? What are your memories like of them? Were they enjoyable? Was there anything that you didn't like about them? Have I missed out, or have I not missed out? You can tell me the answers to that down in the comments, folks. Because I'd be very interested in knowing, you know? Ah, right. God. Right, I've cleared all the device pieces actually on this island. There's not really anything else for me to see or do here, is there? Okay, well, you know what? I think I've been recording for about 10 minutes at minimum there. Somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So that probably will do for an episode, won't it? Because I think I've kind of taken this topic of conversation as far as I really can. So you know what? Hope you enjoyed that little conversation there, ladies and gentlemen. Wonder if that gave anyone a bit of a blast from the past and all that. Did that trigger any nostalgia or whatever else have you? If it did, let me know in the comments and all that. Along with your answers to any of the questions that I've asked over the course of this video. But with that aside, we're going to wrap up here. Also because my nose is starting to feel a bit stuffed up for some reason, which sometimes happens when I'm commentating for a long amount of time. Facebook and Twitter links down below, along with the link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. If you enjoyed, a like is always appreciated. More than that, signing off now. Goodbye, everybody. There you go. See, apart from leg day, it's also work on arms day. Well, it looks like we're going up there, but yeah, we can't go up there. That's probably where we have to go. Unless there's something knocking around here. What's that? Oh, just let it go. Oh, it's the stage area, yes. We definitely want to go down here. But I still feel like some of these might come to life. See, look, there's ones that have bases, but there's a couple over there that don't have bases, which makes me think they're pretending. Should we try this out? Experiment with them. Aha, see? Fucking knew it! Oh god. Good lord. Good lord. They reacted very fast. Yeah.